Hi, everybody. I am here today with kind of a regular over here at the Polymath Place YouTube channel, Barry James. Um, I'm so excited for this recording for him to share with you one of the things he's been cooking up and working on for a while. So, Barry, before we dive into that, though, can you just tell anyone listening to this or watching this a bit about who you are?
Yeah. Okay. So, most of my background, at least on the face of it, is tech. I've kind of been at the forefront of tech in one form or another, for, 3, 4 decades. I try not to count them now because, like, after two or three, you kind of don't want to know. Um, as someone who looked at my LinkedIn profile not too long ago, said actually there's lots of different interests in there, and we both know there's kind of an explanation, if not a reason for that. So I've got quite a lot of background in physics and electronics as well, but also more recently I've been involved in new thinking on economics, and increasingly actually in philosophy as well, the philosophy of humanity in particular. So there's kind of a range of things there, but for reasons which are really to do with the needs that the world has right now. I've got the planet there behind me. My goodness, we got some problems we need to solve, haven't we?
We have a lot of problems. Yeah, for sure. One of which, of course, is ecological in nature. So you've been cooking up a solution. Can you tell us more about your movement?
Okay, well, we did a study. It came from first of all something we did. I mentioned economics, humane economics, which is kind of ongoing, and there are some things happening, um, quietly with that I hope are going to help us change the way we think about money and the world and our priorities and putting humanity first rather than markets or money. That's a big project and it's going to take a while. But out of that has come what we called Humane Energy. And that was really a research project, kind of looking at how the world is doing energy. And, from a 50,000 foot view. And also, I mean, also it was trying to answer some really basic questions. Like, for example, um, we all know that capturing energy and storing it for when we need it is massively better for the environment because we're not burning anything, basically. We're not emitting any carbon and other pollutants. Um, so I wanted to know at what point, as the costs of the technology fall, and they do actually, they're falling very rapidly and have been for quite some time. At what point it becomes really affordable for ordinary people? So over 2 years ago, about 3 years ago, we did a survey. We did a worldwide survey. We looked at the use at all the different technologies available in China, in Australia, and around the world, here as well, obviously, and found some interesting things. For example, in the UK here, you hardly ever see a domestic wind turbine. You see the big ones, the big windmill ones, quite a bit, but in China, it's completely different. They're kind of all over the place, and that needs explaining. You could say it's cultural and dismiss it, but do they have more wind than we have? I don't think so. Uh, we'll come back to that maybe later. But what we found was, this is before the Ukraine crisis. This is before the world energy market started bearing down on us and doubling and trebling our prices and so on. We found that it already was. It's already economic for ordinary people. So we wanted then to understand why it wasn't proliferating, why it wasn't you know, being widely used, because the huge opportunity, not just to stop emitting all of that carbon with all of the great, you know, advantages, and we know we need to do that, but also the other pollutants and so on. So what, you know, we needed to understand why. So we actually did quite a big project from an economics point of view first, and came to the conclusion that the market as we have it is dysfunctional. That at street level, at micro level, it's dysfunctional in that it's kind of, it's a bit of a wild west. It's and it's run on profit maximization, and in a fair, relatively extreme form that is limiting the growth. So we kind of got there, and then something else happened. And some friends of ours, as you know, I've got crowdfunding as one of the major streams in my background, and we still run the crowdfunding center and the crowd data center. So it was natural to kind of hook up with Daniel Edelstein and Hilary Powell and their project up in London in Walthamstow. And they did a great project. They're filmmakers, and it's, you know, it's called Power Station, and their thing is Power Film. And they spent a long time, I think it was a year, crowdfunding to kind of turn their street into a power station. They were inspired by a friend of mine, a friend of ours, in fact, Anne Pettifer, who's well known around the world for her work on poverty and the Jubilee 2000 campaign. And in her book, Green New Deal, I think it was, she had this line about every street should be a power station. And they took that, and they took that as inspiration, and they you know, they've done a project there, and so on. So what, you know, it's kind of going into the summer last year, 2023. I was chatting to them and saying, look, you know, what's next, and can we do this in Sheffield? And they said, yes, we're going to do, you know, a handful of the other projects in Scotland, one in Scotland, one in Wales, maybe, you know. I said, well, when can we start, basically? And they said, well, we've been working really hard for a long time now. We're going on holiday, if that's okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. You go to France. You go and have a great holiday with the family. And you know me, I get itchy feet. So before long, I had we've got a WhatsApp group that we put together on my street here, where I live, you know, the street where I live. We're from COVID, so I basically, you know, pinged out and said, this is what we're thinking of doing. Anyone interested? And expecting 2 or 3 people to show moderate interest, and it wasn't like that at all. There was avid interest straight away. And before long, we were all sat in the cafe halfway down the road talking about this, and I explained about the Walthamstow project and how it had attracted so much attention, how it had worked, and the role of crowdfunding in that, and explained how great crowdfunding is for these sorts of things. And we were there for quite a while, and eventually, by the end of it, you know, there was a lot of enthusiasm, but basically they said, we want to do that, but we don't want to crowdfund it, which is like, what? Crowdfunding is great. No, we want to pay for it ourselves, and maybe we'll crowdfund to help some of the street. Okay, so we're not going to be using Model A. Let me go away and work on Model B. And Green Streets really came from that challenge of me then saying, okay, how could we create a model that does allow renewable energy to proliferate? How close can we get it to paying for itself so that it can proliferate? Because, you know, finding a ton of money these days, whether it's from the government or anywhere else, is tricky. How could we put a model together that would be viable, that not just work for our street and the adjacent streets, or for Sheffield where I live, but would be able to proliferate. And that's how it started.
Wow. So the Green Streets movement exists. It's going to be growing. Um, what what inspired you to do this? Because this is a bunch of extra work, right? It's organizing. I mean, some people don't like doing extra work, but here you are just doing it because you think it needs to be done. What drove you to just make this happen and see the vision come to reality?
Um, I think it goes back to the same drive that was behind the humane economics that I mentioned earlier on.
Mhm.
So let me explain a little bit about that. So um, that came from a humanitarian project that we did during COVID. And I won't get too much into the details of this, but basically that after weeks of work doing a Herculean effort, actually, that was groundbreaking, with a number of different fintech companies to enable money to flow quickly to the people who needed it during the COVID crisis, keeping businesses alive, livelihoods alive. The whole thing, the rug was pulled from under it by one of the banks who had originally agreed. We created the financial pipework that everyone was happy with, all the way from the central bank, the Bank of England, all the way to the places it needed to go. Unprecedented and on an unprecedented timescale. And at the last minute, they pulled the plug, and I was stunned. I was stunned. I just, not because of the bank, not because of the technology, but because this was a humanitarian effort that was badly, badly needed. And it was I guess, about they were making quite a lot of money out of the COVID crisis, if the truth's known. And they wanted that fee income. And that mattered way more than businesses, thousands of businesses, probably tens of thousands of businesses who folded but didn't need to. And that, I mean, look, I've been around a bit, right? I know how business works. I know how banks think. But even for me, that was a real shocker, and it made me reassess along these lines that, having spent all those decades, in tech and trying to make the world a better place, as they say, through systems and internet and different uses of technology, I realized that it was a wake-up call for me to say, actually, the core problems that we have can't be solved with technology. So let's understand what those core problems are, Barry. Well, my starting place was this: we're wrecking the planet. We know we are. And we're not slowing down or stopping as we should be. We're speeding up. And we keep talking about slowing down, and tons of efforts and teams and great people are working on making us slow down, but we keep speeding up. And the same is true of poverty. When I was growing up, my parents expected my generation to do better than them, as theirs had from their parents. But that's turned around. And, the current generation are worse off and are going to be worse off. And the next generation is going to be worse off again. So we've got this kind of world economy, and, you know, there's a big problem there somewhere. Right at the core, it's not serving humanity. It's actually enslaving humanity. So I asked the question, why can't we turn around? Why, why, even though there's so much will to do that, why can't we? So that was, humane economics. And as we went on, we looked at the energy side of things, and really the humane energy and then Green Streets came along. Last winter in the UK, we had huge corporations taking money off of people systematically during a bitter cold, at the point they were putting money in their meters. They were taking half of the money that they absolutely needed to stay reasonably warm, and saying, we're going to set this off against your debt or your arrears. And we got that stopped, right? So this is like, you know, this is sort of working on the grassroots stuff, if you like. And then and fundamentally, I think we have to do both. We have to work out how to change the way that the world thinks and works, our operating system. I hope we can do that, because without that, it's difficult to see how we're going to solve our big problems. But also, we kind of need to go from the ground up as well. And this is what, Green Streets is about. And I hope, that the two are intended to work together.
Wow, that's amazing. What's really amazing too is that, you saw a problem and you decided to get involved. There are a lot of people out in the world that just say, oh, someone else will figure it out, but you're different. And I love it. I'm curious, like, what are your neighbors seem pretty enthusiastic about this from what you said. Like, how are they feeling about the plans and the progress and what's coming?
Yeah, to be honest, as I say, I was quite stunned by the immediate enthusiasm from the very beginning. As I say, I expected to kind of get a more jaded response. And to be fair, when we met, there were some people who were absolutely, um, you know, mega keen because of the environmental side of it,
Mhm.
and the financial side of it was a bonus. Uh,
Right.
Probably the majority, though, were kind of more balanced on that, where they get the environmental side, but obviously, needs to pay for itself. We're in a financial crisis. It's not
Mhm.
unreasonable that it should. And a number of them said to me, look, we've been wanting to do this for years. We've been, two or three times close to making the decision to kind of start down that road. And then, it's a big investment. Is it the right time? And so on. So I can kind of see how that is. So that's, and then we got further into it and understood that I'm fortunate in having the background I do. So, I can evaluate technical specs and, quotes and the systems designs and such. But a lot of people, they haven't got the time. And if they got the time, many people don't have the skill. So it's kind of who do you trust? How do you, as part of the experiment, I had quite a few sales organizations come here and do us a quote. And I could see that, wow, unless I, had that background, or even with that background, sometimes it was difficult to tell, what they were telling was sort of trustworthy without with more research and time than the average people would have at their disposal. So all of this came together with a realization that if we can take those barriers away and make this pay for itself, not just affordable, but pay for itself, we should be we've got a shot at transforming the way this works.
So it sounds like, I mean, I'm hearing some major benefits of this because of the way you have worked with the solar panel provider. It's more affordable than they'd be able to get a loan on their own. It helps the environment, and it can even become a profit center for them over time. Like the financial aspect of it, you figured out a way to make it benefit the homeowner and the solar panel buyer more than the power company,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, there's a fundamental, first of all, in that, owning a power station, a big one, is a very profitable thing to do. And you can see why. You've only got to put a small tax or modular, whatever you want to call it, on the energy. And you've got a huge rolling income, and in the current times where you can maximize that, that's pretty, they get to be pretty staggering numbers, and we see those numbers, when see the profits of the relevant companies come out every year, and we're kind of excluded from that. uh and in principle, actually, if I own my own power station, um and it doesn't cost me anything to for the fuel, because the fuel is the sun. It's, you know could also be the wind. That's and that means I don't have to pay for it. So if I can pay for the equipment, and it's a bit like, Kodak. Kodak, in the old world, you paid for the paper, for every print, for the film, every time you took a photograph. Digital photography, you buy the equipment and you just take as many pictures as you want and store them. It's really equivalent to that. Um, and so, in principle, it's just better to own the means of capturing and storing the energy you need. And oh yeah, and as you say, we've, I mean, this was sharpened a lot by the post-Ukraine crisis in the UK, but we didn't quite know how we were going to get through as a country. The peak demand last winter, and so schemes were started to be put in place. But we always knew we have our sort of peak demand at the end of the afternoon into the evening, when everyone comes home, puts the kettle on, and starts cooking and so on. And it's then when most of the what is technically dispatchable power, the stuff that you can just turn on in an instant, which tends to be fueled by gas, and so gas being burnt and producing carbon dioxide and so on. So there's an opportunity now, to alleviate that problem by selling, in effect, any surplus that we have back into the grid. And so we've built the model on, not just servicing the needs of the home, to whatever extent, with our own power station that is clean and green, but also creating income streams. So one of them, as I say, from being able to help the grid with energy at peak times, and the other one, it is to do with carbon credits, which is a whole different story.
That's so cool. So smart, so intelligent. It's called Green Streets Revolution. Can we talk about the word revolution for a minute? Like, what do you think is revolutionary about? I see it, but can you articulate for any watchers or listeners, like what is revolutionary about this, if you had to pinpoint it?
I think we are in the midst of a revolution that should be happening but isn't yet, in the way that we think about, generate, capture, and use energy. So I think that we, as I mentioned earlier on, that our markets are, and the way that we've done this are archaic now, and dysfunctional, both the traditional electricity market, but also the solar market and the way that's been working as well. So I see this as a way of, basing the future on those things we've just been talking about, and giving people their own access. We don't have to be locked out. We don't have to be dependent on other world markets where the price is optimized for let's be honest, it's optimized for the traders and the suppliers. And how much say do we get? Well, ask our prime minister, who goes on television, and our regulator go on television and say, we're sorry, these price rises are out of our control, they're in the world markets. So why wouldn't we, given the fact that this technology exists, put it into the hands of you and I, ordinary people, That's a revolution, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Stop making the big companies and the fat cats more money and take back your power and be more independent yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want this to be a revolution right across the UK and beyond as well. And we're kind of working on plans for that.
Yeah, that was my next question is like, so you've started this on your street,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, like, what is your vision for this in the longer term?
Um, we'll be making some announcements on this soon. I probably oughtn't to say too much, but we have an ambition to create hubs, renewable energy hubs, right across the UK. Every city, every town, um, you know, streets like ours, down to that level as well sometimes. And we can work with local councils, we can work with MPs, we can work with commercial organisations on this. Just as we've worked with the renewable energy suppliers, the installers, and help get their costs down. We're not, just taking money away from them. We're helping get their costs down, and that makes it better for everyone. So we've got an exciting plan, I believe, that is based on a project we did some years ago that was very successful. It was pretty much viral. That we hope to, by the end of this year, have a big network of hubs across large parts, if not the whole UK.
Wow. And then who knows what's possible? Maybe it'd go outside the UK too someday.
Well, for
It,
me, I wasn't expecting that to happen, but we've already had, I mean, we've made no real efforts, none at publicity. There's a kind of newsletter list that I quietly put up, but no promotion, which immediately had over 1,000 subscriptions. So that gives you a kind of feel for this. But we've already had a couple of, inquiries from other countries, strangely in that environment, saying, mostly people I know, to be fair, but saying, okay, could we adapt this?
yeah, exactly. I think it is adaptable. I think the model you've created and are piloting on your street could definitely be expanded and would help with global warming issues. It would help maintain more independence with people's energy. And it's just a better model to, reduce the fat cats getting fatter and put money back in the pocket of the homeowners who did the work and did the strategy and, took the risk on this investment. Um, if someone's thinking about this, like say there's someone in the UK who is seeing this video and they're like, I'm thinking about this. What could you tell them to convince them you should do this? Give it a try. What would you tell them?
I mean, one of the things I'd say is this is not a big risky thing. Someone else has already done all the risky stuff, and the
Mhm.
technology has been proven. Uh, a lot of it is like 25-year guarantee on it. That sort of stuff. It ranges a bit, 10, 15, 20 years. But those guarantees are becoming longer and longer as
Mhm.
the track record, supports that. Um, so I'd say this. I'd say, look, here's an opportunity to, none of us knows what the price of electricity is going to be next year, the year after, and the year after. But it's a reasonable bet that it's going to go up. I wouldn't put any money down to bet that it's going to go down or stay the same. And if you want that bet, I'm here for you. Right? So I don't think reasonably we can expect that. So here's a way of free free at least, you know freezing those costs, becoming independent of those greedy global markets, that even our prime minister, your president, no one else can control. And basically, if we get this um, as right as I think we will, we'll be able to start, um, uh, you know, um, giving an increasing income, creating an increasing household income for people. We're going to be using AI to optimize the way these systems are used. So it'll know about the weather. It'll know about, your usage patterns. It will know, you know, if it should, there's very cheap energy available typically in the middle of the night when no one really wants it. So you can buy it for pennies. But then, it's badly needed later in the day for those peaks. So it'll be able to manage all of that as well. And then when some of our partners who are working in Parliament on something called the local electricity bill get that through, we'll be able to do microgrids and so on. But I would say, look, this is uh, we're here to chart a path for you. Uh, we're on, we're not working for the installers. We're not working for the global energy. We're working for you guys, you householders, you schools, you communities, and help you to chart a path that gets you something that can pay for itself. You'll never have your energy costs go up again, and actually hope it should be more a question of how much we can earn for you, the system can earn for you in the short term. And of course, once the system pays for itself, the that your earnings go, whoa. So all that money that you would have been sending to the energy company comes back to you.
Goes in your checking account for you. I like the sound of that. Sign me up. Where can people go to find out more information about this if they want to join the revolution?
Join the revolution. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so if you are LinkedInite, I spend a lot of time there. If you just search on LinkedIn for Green Streets Revolution, you'll find us there. It's a nice, easy way to find us. There's also that newsletter I mentioned there. You'll be able to find via that route. On the web, if you go to greenstreets.club, there's a sign up form there where if you sign up there, we'll keep you informed of. Or we're not officially launched yet. We're going to be launching the Green Streets Club in a while, and that's going to have a whole range of benefits for people who can just kind of come and join and get ready for what we've been talking about. And by the way, there's a whole roadmap of other things that we're going to be helping with, like um, uh, heat pumps and EVs and electric bikes and all the stuff that will save us money, but we'll be doing that in other ways as well. So there'll be a Green Streets Club. So if you come and register there, we'll keep you in the loop.
Awesome. Are there any other final thoughts you'd like to share about this, or any final ideas that you'd like that I haven't brought up that you'd like to capture before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess the one I want to mention is, in kind of talking about the financial side of it and all of the other sides of it. To an extent, the real thrust of this can get missed. We only have one planet. Don't have someone famously said we don't have a planet B. And we can do this. We can reduce. This is the biggest impact that a household or a school or a community can have on their emissions, both carbon emissions and pollutants. It's the biggest impact. And now that we've made it so it can pay for itself, why not?
It's a no-brainer. Yeah. And if we don't start taking individual accountability for our weather issues, our ecological issues, they're going to get worse. If we don't deal with this, we're going to keep getting weirder weather problems, and we're going to have to start, who knows, building houses underground to keep them cool, or moving away from the equator because it's too hot. There will be consequences, if not for us, for future generations.
Yeah.
And so I really do think it's important, obviously, if the government, sorry, I love to criticize government and critique them because I want them to do good work for the people of the world. If we just wait and depend on government to solve problems for us, we might be waiting forever.
Yeah,
If governments could solve global warming, they would have done it by now, but they haven't. So I really think it's incumbent upon those of us who can do our part to do it. And this is an ingenious, brilliant model you've come up with, Barry, to help individuals do it in a way that's financially savvy and could even generate profit for them over time, and also that's really smart for the environment, and it's bringing communities together to, and it's stimulating the economy in some areas and rethinking how we can take power away and money and profits away from the big corporations and put the money back in the people's pockets. So
yeah,
I think it's brilliant. And I also, can I just say, because this is posted on Polymath's Place, I have to look at it through that lens before we end. You're such a strong polymath. You really think globally. You see a problem and you go, how can I fix it? You founded so many things over the decades, whether it was humane economics or the crowdfunding stuff or green streets. You see an issue and then you figure out how you can help. And I just want to say, for anyone watching this, I hope you find inspiration in Barry's example, that there is an opportunity for everybody to like learn and grow and do and help, rather than just sort of sitting on the sidelines and waiting for other people to fix the problems. So thank you,
yeah.
Barry, for what you're doing. I
And,
just
and,
hope it spreads
uh,
like crazy.
and let me just add to that, and thank you so much for those kind words. But this isn't just for me, and it's not just for, people in the distance. This is kind of for everyone. Both, what you've just been talking about in terms of being more polymathic or whatever, and being able, reaching out and to problems that might be daunting or whatever. But also, we want everyone to be, we've got our arms wide open. So come and join us. Come and add your 10 cents. We'll take 10p from from the UK, 10
Cents,
cents
cents, whatever.
dime, or whatever you got, intellectually, in effort, in enthusiasm, or whatever. Come join us and let's make this happen together.
Yeah. Find the Green Streets Revolution on LinkedIn. Check out greenstreets.club and get involved. See what you can do. I think we can make a difference with global warming, and this is a really smart model for how we can do that. Help offset carbon emissions, help capture solar energy, and make it financially viable in the process, and bring communities together. It's just brilliant on so many levels. All right, Barry. Well, thank you for being a guest here on my channel again. And
Thank you,
everyone
Angela.
watching, I hope you enjoyed this. All
Thanks,
right.
Angela. I'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye, everyone.